Hi, my name is Samuel. I'm 25 years old, and after being around 3 to 2 years in the info space, info coaching, whatever you want to call it, and helping over 38 people, coaches, agencies, consultants, a kind of mixture of everything within the online space, and generating over $750,000 for my clients. And for proof, I'll just put a few testimonials here so you know I'm actually talking about what I've done and not just typical info space where just all bullshit. I have spotted four different patterns that I see across the people who actually get success and really good results. I mean, making from 0 to 5K to 10K to 30K and even 100K a month. There are four patterns specifically that you do need to align if you are trying to get to those numbers. So in this video, I'll pinpoint exactly what those four patterns are so you can make sure to reflect and see if you are in a good configuration to scale to those types of numbers. The pattern number one is ICP clarity. And what do I mean by this? Everybody knows the term ICP, ideal client profile, the persona, the target audience, right? But what is that? Is that just I'm targeting men over the age of 30? Yeah, that's way too broad. Like we see nowadays a big influx in coaches and people providing services. But if they're all targeting a very broad market, as a client, you'll have a hard time actually choosing one. There's a lot of options, and what tends to happen if you have really poor ICP or positioning, it's the same, it's two ends of the same spectrum. You'll just target everyone, and you'll be like every other coach or offer. And when push comes to shove, and this happens a lot in the Portuguese markets for a few people, they just have to lower their prices. And it's just a race to the bottom to see who has the best angle, the best advantage. That's really what we're talking about here. And majority of them rather lower their price and make better offers, quote unquote, than actually learning how to position themselves better and have a different angle and attack a different ICP, unlike the rest of the market. So to sum it up, have a really good specific ICP that you don't have to compete with the rest of the market, and you will become the best choice and the only choice. The pattern number two is sales process. And a lot of people take sales process as the sales calls, as booking in calls. And of course that is part of that, but sales process goes A to Z within content to the sales call. The really good magnetizing audiences that actually bring people in, they are playing around with core desires. They're showing in terms of what they speak, how they illustrate that with visuals, the desires of their ICPs and the pain points. This within the content. For example, speaking about desires and showing them in top of funnel content, reshaping their limiting beliefs in the middle of funnel and getting them to interact to a long form video. That's sales. That's actually getting people to move forward down the funnel. And of course, taking more committed action in the bottom of funnel when they show results, they talk about pain points, and they call to action. Yeah, click this button, comment this. And then there's another step. Actually, when people are in the DMs, nurturing them, sending them long form assets, sending them belief shifting assets that they've expressed in the DMs. A lot of coaches just get a DM, just, yeah, straight to call, let's have a call, pitch them, and they're not ready to buy. They need to be nurtured, especially if they're targeting a broad audience and people aren't really buying into the coaching of that person. But the biggest mistake I see is coaches just focusing on going viral, getting a ton of attention, and they don't know how to convert that large amount of attention into comments, into DMs. So that's really the biggest bottleneck that I see, just getting a ton of views and not getting people into the door, into the DMs, into the ecosystem to follow. For example, on top of funnel reels, just having a CDA to follow for X desire, follow for X, Y, and Z. That does a huge amount of work in terms of long-term conversion. Pattern number three is very similar to pattern number one. It's messaging. It's how you communicate the desires, the pain points, your offer, to the level of consciousness of your ICP. For example, I was working at the client and he was having over 200 leads every month. But I always knew I was working within the sales process and managing the team. I always knew that the problem was in the marketing because we were getting a ton of leads, but I saw the creatives. They weren't that good. They didn't have very good messaging and they were just very broad. And that reflected on the sales process, on the leads. So when we first started working together, I thought it was a sales process because looking at the metrics, like it wasn't very good, but I optimized every single metric. The results weren't staggering. The results weren't that different. So I really understood that the biggest problem was in the market. So I counted every lead and understood who was exactly coming in within the ads. When we found a few audiences, so women, men, they both were around 30 to 45 years old. But women were people who wanted to get started into fitness that weren't starting. And men, majority of them were already in the gym, right? And I saw that there was a lot more women coming in, but the response rate was terrible. Like they didn't respond because we were targeting low committed people who hadn't even trained. But the men responded, but the men were way fewer, but responded a lot more and closed way bigger packages, like annual packages and stuff, compared to the women who were just, the AOV was terrible compared to the men. Men like invested twice or triple the amount. So I figured, all right, let's make hyper specific messaging for these guys, right? And within that funnel, we invested with that messaging that I wrote without even being asked, and we got a 20x ROAS on that funnel, on that specific creative. So a lot of times we think it's a sales process or it's a close rate, but if you really understand who is coming in with the funnel, you can tweak around the messaging. This is with ads, but with content as well. Just ads, you can look at numbers specifically and have really clear data. You can optimize your messaging to really hit that home run ICP and get a really good return on your ad spend. Now, pattern number 4. This is really an underrated pattern. A lot of the guys that I see that are really crushing it have full teams, have operators managing team members behind. Why? Because a lot of online entrepreneurs, coaches, whatever, they're trying to get freedom. They're trying to get like standouts and break out of the matrix, right? And what tends to happen is we try to do everything ourselves because in our towns we're most of the times really alone in terms of that mindset. So what ends up happening is we try to do everything our own. We have to do sales, we have to do marketing, we have to do delivery, operations, everything, right? That's just a fuck ton of work, if I'm being honest. And the problem with that is it doesn't leave a lot of time to think. You're either thinking about the decisions that you have to make or executing on them, but then you're not thinking. So it's a lot of work for one person. And what tends also to happen is we invest into mentors and to guide us through, and that alleviates part of the thinking, but we still have to execute, and people hate executing. So the biggest ROI that I see on guys who are actually crushing it in terms of coaching agencies is they hire operators to implement, so more technical guys, to implement systems within their business. Either it's client acquisition systems, so on content, on ads, on the back end stuff that actually remove a lot of the execution because it's systematized and the coaches can actually have more time to think about the business and to invest in those ROI tasks like creating content, like service delivery, like thinking about the brand vision, where they want to go, what's their positioning, and not spend as much time executing. And when you have people executing and the founder actually concerned on the vision, the ROI is much greater than the founder not being fully aligned with the vision and building it constantly and having to execute on that. It just won't work out as fast. It's the same thing as the founder having to row one boat by himself compared to leading a team and having a few more guys rowing and him steering. They go way faster and they go in the right direction. So those are really the 4 patterns that I've spotted that coaches that scale to 10, 15, 20, 30 and even 100K plus months have. And if you're watching, I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. If you're new to the channel, drop a subscribe. And if you want to learn more about topic number 1 and topic number 2, and if you want to see the full system that I use for my clients, just message me system on Instagram. I'll drop it below this video and I'll send you the full YouTube breakdown.